Coming into this season, the San Diego Padres were a top pick to win the NL West and make a run in the postseason. They were fresh off a season last year that saw them win the wildcard round, then promptly celebrated like they won the World Series before falling short to the eventual champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Although they fell short in the playoffs, it was a successful season for San Diego. They had a stacked young hitting core centered around the Mercurio Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the best and most exciting players in baseball, and as a team had one of the brightest futures in all of baseball. The Friars added to their playoff team by going big game hunting in the offseason, trading for aces Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, as well as Joe Musgrove, signing elite closer Mark Melancon, and then the biggest deal of all, locking Tatis up for the next 14 years, assuring that their superstar would spend his entire prime in San Diego. Following these brash moves, there was no reason that the Padres shouldn't have been considered a World Series contender for 2021. Many people even tapped them to win their division over the equally stacked Dodgers, predicting a two-team race that would go down to the last weeks of the season. But come September, San Diego shockingly finds itself more than 12 games out of first and hovering around the second wildcard spot. A team that was all but a lock to make the playoffs before the season started now only has a 33% chance to make it due to 2 straight sub-500 months. Some people are calling it the curse of the flipping bird, as the team is 26-31 since this Padres fan flipped off a Dodgers fan. And by some people, I mean me. So what in the world is happening in San Diego? Where did it all go wrong for the supposed juggernaut? Is there any hope for the Padres to make a run this year? Or will they have to make amends with their failures and retool for 2022? There's a lot of questions to answer, so let's go ahead and address them. Real quick, before we start, make sure to subscribe to SportsGab for more weekly videos. We just reached 1.1 thousand subs, which I'm truly grateful for, so if you're not subbed, make sure to hit that red button. Also, make sure to ring the bell to stay notified for when future videos drop. And if you're digging the content, make sure to give this video a like, and make sure to check out my last video I made on the New York Yankees resurgence. And without further ado, let's get started. If we ended this video after June, then one could assume the Padres season went pretty well. On June 30th, San Diego found itself in 3rd place, but only 2.5 games behind the Dodgers and the shock team of the NL, the San Francisco Giants. It wasn't ideal for them, but they were still a solid lock to be the second wildcard. They even survived an injury scare from Tatis early in the season, when Fernando almost tore his shoulder from its socket on an awkward swing at the plate. But miraculously, Tatis only missed a few weeks. This saved the Padres season from free-falling earlier than it has, as Tatis has had an incredible MVP caliber season. But early on the pitching side, newcomers Darvish and Snell were struggling to assimilate and produce their usual ace-level stuff. Darvish was coming off a near Cy Young campaign last year with the Cubs, while Snell was the best pitcher in the World Series for the AL champion Rays. The other new guy fit in seamlessly though. Musgrove, the native San Diegan, has been the ace of the staff and has had his best year of his career. He even threw a no-hitter back in April and has been the anchor of the staff. All of this after being traded from the Pirates in the offseason. There's just something about that team and trading young potential stud pitchers for pennies on the dollar. Regardless of Darvish and Snell's adjustment woes, the Padres still boasted a top-level staff in the league, coupled with a top 3 bullpen headlined by MLB saves leader Melancon. Slam Diego was cruising to a guaranteed playoff spot at 16 games over 500. The team sent 5 players to the All-Star game, including Tatis, Darvish, and Melancon, but also young star Jay Cronenworth and perennial All-Star Manny Machado. Riding the backs of a potential MVP, a native ace, and a lights-out bullpen, things were looking pretty bright in Southern California. But sadly for San Diego, the season didn't end on June 30th. In the following 2 months, the once dominant-looking Friars went 22-29, including in August in which they had 3 separate 4-game losing streaks. But why has it all fallen apart for a team that had such lofty standards set for itself? In reality, it's been a mix of both hitting and pitching regressions from last season. If you had to choose the biggest culprit for their mid-season debacle though, it has to be the disappointing pitching staff. As previously mentioned, coming into this year, the Padres had all the makings of a top-tier pitching staff. You had 2 former Cy Young Award winners in Darvish and Snell, to go along with young promising players like Chris Paddack, Dinelson Lamet, and of course Joe Musgrove. But aside from Musgrove, everyone else on the staff has underperformed from last year. Yu Darvish holds a 3.80 ERA and 1.03 WHIP, which is more in line with his career numbers, but not quite like his Cy Young worthy 2.23 ERA and 0.96 WHIP from last season. Similarly, Snell has taken a big step back from his 2020 campaign, one in which he had a 3.24 ERA and 1.2 WHIP. This year, he's up to a 4.31 ERA and a really poor 1.38 WHIP. Both Paddack and Lamet have also disappointed this year, but for different reasons. Paddock has continued his downward trend from his 2019 rookie season, culminating in a putrid 4.98 ERA in 2021. This is disconcerting for San Diego, who once hailed Paddock as a future ace of their staff. For Lamet, it's been ongoing injury issues that have plagued his promising season. He's coming off a 2020 campaign in which he had a 2.09 ERA and a stellar 0.85 WHIP in 12 starts. But a hip inflection has sidelined him for a good chunk of the season, and even when he has started, he's looked like a shell of the self he was last year. All of this has left Musgrove as the only consistently reliable guy on the staff, but only having one ace followed by two average and two below average starters just won't cut it, especially when you're in a division with the Dodgers and Giants who are stacked with elite arms. So although the Padres are 4th in team strikeouts, they're floating around 10th in most other team pitching categories including ERA, WHIP, and opponent's batting average. If they had everyone playing up to their standards, they would be top 5 in almost every category, but in reality they're a middle tier rotation with big names. They tried to remedy their lack of success on the mound this season by firing pitching coach Larry Rothschild, who I definitely know Yankees fans will vouch for, but that move may have been too little too late. While the pitching has been a major letdown, the offense that uses swag chains for home run celebrations and calls itself Slam Diego has also got to take its share of the blame when things go wrong. Aside from Tatis, Cronenworth, and Machado, their lineup has underperformed big time. Eric Hosmer has continued his regression, producing only 11 homers and 55 RBIs this season. Considering they're paying him $21 million this year and have him under contract until 2025, those certainly aren't the numbers you'd hope for from a franchise cornerstone. Their outfield has been even more upsetting, with Tommy Pham, Trent Grisham, Will Myers, and Jurickson Profar providing little help on the offensive side. Add to that the big offseason signing of Ha-Seong Kim from the KBO doing little to nothing at the plate, and you have the makings of a middle-of-the-pack offense. Because of this, Fernando and Manny have carried a San Diego offense that has looked lackluster at times. Tatis's stat line split of 282, 365, and 640, coupled with his 36 dingers, 81 RBIs, 1005 OPS, and 24 steals, is the definition of doing it all. Who knows where this team would be without his hefty hitting campaign. The same goes for Machado, whose line of 274, 344, 486, and his 23 long balls, 86 ribeyes, and 830 OPS are all either first or second on the team. With those two alone, you'd think that the Padres were a top 5 offense in major categories. But aside from being 3rd in walks and 2nd in steals, the Friars are near or below 10th in the league in runs, hits, RBIs, average, OPS, and more. Sometimes they're red hot, and other times they're ice cold, which explains the middling stats. All in all, this is not a good sign for a team that is also struggling with their starting pitching, and it's part of the reason why they've fallen more than 7 games in the standings since June. With all these problems plain to see, one would assume that the Padres and GM AJ Preller addressed them at the trade deadline, but San Diego didn't do much to help out their team in the pennant race. Their one big move was to get Adam Frazier, the league's leading hit getter at the time, from the Pirates. This seemed like a great deal at the time, as the Padres needed more pure hitters and they only gave up 4 lower-end prospects. They thought they got a steal considering Adams' elite batting line. But since being traded to San Diego, Frazier's line has slumped in 29 games. Adams gone from a premier leadoff hitter to being sent down to the bottom of the lineup and even to the bench. Aside from the Frazier deal, the Padres did nothing to help their biggest weak spot, their pitching rotation. They traded for bullpen help in Nationals reliever Daniel Hudson, improving the one spot that they're without a doubt elite in, as they already had the MLB's best bullpen ERA. Where they really needed to go at the deadline was to get another starter who they could slot after Musgrove and complement Darvish. They thought they had a deal in place with the Nationals to acquire Scherzer, who would have been the perfect addition to the staff. But they ended up losing that race to the Dodgers of all teams, leaving San Diego without any starting pitching upgrade and leaving their biggest weakness unfulfilled. With few meaningful changes made to the roster, it is no surprise that the team has played itself down to the brink of playoff contention. Aside from a 19-9 May, the Padres have been hovering around 500 each month before and after. This shows that the roster is not the overwhelming contender it was thought to be and that there is still a lot of work needed to be done for them to get to the Dodgers level. So is there any hope for the Friars to regroup and make an inspired run at the World Series? Maybe, if their pitchers pitch up to what they're capable of besides Musgrove. Perhaps Darvish finally finds his groove and reverts back to his 2020 Cy Young form, and maybe Snell will turn a page as well, giving the Padres 3 aces heading into October. Mix that with the return of Dinelson Lamet and you could possibly have the best 4-man rotation in baseball heading into October. But honestly, I don't see that happening without some major turnarounds, so at the moment, it's very unlikely. In fact, they're not even a lock to make the postseason at this point with their current lineup and rotation problems. I wouldn't be surprised if either the Reds, Phillies, or Cardinals overtake them by the season's end. The Reds have one of the most potent offenses in the MLB, the Phillies are red hot and playing some of their best baseball the past month, and the Cardinals are the Cardinals, so don't count out their late season black magic. In my opinion, they have to retool for 2022 if they have any shot at winning it all. But at the moment, they're pretty limited on the pitching front with a lot of players under contract and eating up their team payroll. That means that most likely San Diego will have to look internally for their pitching upgrades. And they may just have some of their guys in the club already. After missing all of this season following Tommy John surgery, Mike Clevinger should be ready to go by 2022, and top pitching prospect Mackenzie Gore will most likely be called up at some point next season. Hopefully for the Padres, Clevinger's addition to the staff will be the missing link for this team to rise as a top contender in the NL. A starting five of Musgrove, Darvish, Snell, Clevinger, and Lamet is a World Series rotation on paper. They just need Snell and Darvish to step up their games and for Clevinger and Lamet to stay healthy for a full season. Furthermore, they need to go after a reliable bat to help vault their offense into a different stratosphere. Perhaps they can go all out in free agency for a guy like Chris Bryant who can play any position on the field. You can't always count on Tatis and Machado to do all the heavy lifting for you. The biggest irony of this season has been that the Giants are everything that the Padres thought they would be. Coming into 2021, the Padres were the pick to challenge the Dodgers with an improved lineup and rotation. But instead, it's been the Giants who have an improved top 3 pitching staff and lineup that leads the league in home runs. San Francisco is neck and neck with Los Angeles for the best record in the league, while San Diego is lagging behind in a distant third. This was truly unexpected, but it just goes to show that hype and potential win you nothing in the majors. For the Padres, this season should be a lesson. They have to realize that they're still not quite there yet as a legitimate contender. Hopefully they can learn from their previous mistakes like not addressing their rotation at the deadline, and hopefully they do so and don't go way overboard in their pursuit of glory like they did in 2015. If they make moves in a judicious manner, they could have their prize juggernaut next season and for many more years to come.